trainee clinical psychologist for a very brief period at the Government Medical College and Hospital, Chandigarh. So, as Saniya ma'am said, in this session, we will be talking about all the possible career options in the field of psychology. In case if, like as we expect, most of you will be pursuing your career. So we can begin with. So Ms. Saniya Bhutani will be talking about the clinical aspects of career in psychology, and I will be talking the other relevant aspects of careers in psychology.
So that's how we have structured our talk, that we will dominantly be covering the clinical and the non-clinical aspects. The clinical aspects would dominantly be related to the healthcare setup. So what are the various career options that one can be involved as a psychologist in a healthcare setup? That could be a special ed setup, it could be a hospital, it could be a clinic, or various departments. So dominantly we'll start or address the most commonly recognized psychologists are the clinical psychologists as of now. And the clinical psychologists in India, they primarily work in the hospital setup where they're dealing with patients with the mental health concerns. Typically, the clinical aspects that are presented. For example, someone is coming with depression, which is a clinical diagnosis of depression. And if someone comes at a level which is not a clinical level, we'll prefer sending them to somebody else, or if we feel that they're at that spectrum that they can reach a clinical diagnosis, then we would try to deal with them ourselves, right? So clinical psychologists in India, they are supposed to undergo a training which involves a full hospital setup training, where you are working in a mental health setup where you're seeing patients. It's in collaboration with the psychiatry department, and the psychiatrists are also there. So various institutes are offering MPhil in clinical psychology. So to start your journey generally in psychology, it's expected that you start from bachelor's in psychology and you do a master's, and post that you can take a final call if you want to pursue clinical or you want to pursue something else. This context is mostly Indian context that we'll be addressing. There may be examples where we would talk about the international scenario, but in the Indian setup, you will have to do a bachelor's and a master's in psychology. If you feel that you are interested in the clinical setup where you are seeing patients with mental health issues, then you can opt for MPhil Clinical Psychology, which is run by Rehabilitation Council of India. So one might be confused that MPhil has been withdrawn, or there's no MPhil is not recognized. But just to differentiate, MPhil that is run by the UGC has been dropped. MPhil Clinical Psychology, which is run by the Rehabilitation Council of India, that provides you with the license to work in a mental health setup, it is still there. We don't know if there will be a change in the nomenclature of the same, but till now it is MPhil in Clinical Psychology. So after MPhil in Clinical Psychology, you will be you can easily work with patients having emotional disorders, personality disorders. You will be doing the psychodiagnostic assessments, maybe to confirm the diagnosis. That's what the clinical psychologists are doing. You will be trained to use various tools. What we are studying in schools or during our education, like the concept of IQ, all of that you are trained in the clinical psychology. Maybe during your bachelor's and master's you're introduced to these things, but practice ke liye you will have to have your license. So one option is clinical psychology, where you can work with the adult population. You can also choose to work only with children. That, maybe after your MPhil in clinical psychology, you can work as a child psychologist in a healthcare setup that is dominantly working with the pediatric or the child population. For example, autism diagnosis, or to check the IQ in a child with autism, or the social functioning in autism. You can also assist in diagnosis of disorders like ADHD, or you can also be involved in the psychotherapeutic part where you feel the child has undergone some trauma and maybe your assistance as a child psychologist would help them. So, a child psychologist in a clinical setup would also require the MPhil training where you are fluent in dealing and doing the assessments. Further, we come to counseling psychology, or so as a counseling psychologist, one can upskill themselves by maybe pursuing some certain certification courses after the masters or maybe during the masters. For example, one may enjoy working with uh, marital counseling or relationship counseling, so one can pursue that. Or if someone feels that they want to work on the traumatic aspects of an individual, so they may specialize in that. So counseling psychology works with the non clinical patients. So अगर किसी काउंसलिंग साइकोलॉजिस्ट के पास कोई पेशेंट आता है which they feel that they are of a clinical level, they are usually recommended to they'll usually recommend it to a clinical psychologist, right? Then further we have special educators. People are convert after bachelor's in psychology. There are a lot of students who are inclined to work in the field with the children and provide their services. So they may also opt to work as a special educator. So special educator के लिए you will need another additional qualification after your bachelor's in psychology. But in India it's still not that strict, but it is always recommended कि जब भी कोई guidelines आए we adhere it. So a special educator, you'll have to do a B.Ed in special education so that you're able to train children with learning disabilities or autism in educating them. Uh, Another upcoming department or area is the neuropsychology, where the psychologists are working in the neurology department or with the neurologist or the neuropsychiatrists. For example, a healthy person met with an accident and got a head injury. So, a neuropsychologist may be involved in the assessment if the individual has developed any kind of behavioral changes after that, या फिर जैसे किसी को epilepsy है, या फिर someone got stroke, or someone has Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. So in type के disorders में usually there is accompanied behavioral change. So all those behavior change may be related to the regular functioning or related to the assessment part, whatever changes in terms of the IQ one has undergone, or some kinds of functioning की जो हमारी executive functioning है, maybe your planning abilities. So all these are assessed by the neuropsychologist. The neuropsychologist may advise, may also get involved in the rehabilitation part, but that's the role of the rehabilitation psychologist, where the rehabilitation psychologist would assist, would use the principles of psychology like motivation and understanding the emotional parts and helping the person to recover. So there are obviously some common features amongst all the psychologists, that they do aim for the well-being of the person who comes to them. So as a psychologist, whether you're a clinical or a non-clinical, it's always our agenda is always to have a better life for the other person, right? So there is the neuropsychologist also, then the health psychologist. As a health psychologist, you work in a hospital setup where you may be dealing with patients with terminal illnesses, or someone who's been admitted in the hospital and maybe undergoing some kind of emotional ups and downs. We are not sure if the person will recover or not, giving a family support. So that's the work of the health psychologist, where they work in the healthcare setup with the non-clinical or the non-psychiatric population. जिनको कोई भी और प्रॉब्लम है is what is addressed by the health psychologist. Uh, as we all know, cancer is increasing, and cancer has a lot of emotional aspects associated with the patient and with the caregivers also. So people have now started specializing, and psycho-oncology as a field is also gaining acceptance and is also in demand. So specifically, cancer centers are looking for psycho-oncologists who can work with the cancer patients, maybe who are living with that diagnosis, maybe someone who is undergoing certain therapies, or maybe the caregiver, या फिर किसी का relapse हो गया, वापस हो गया. So the psycho-oncologist there would address that. Military psychology is one of the reasons why I've written it in the healthcare is because the defense looks for independent psychologists. They want the psychologists to work in the army hospital, and because army, the military, they are generally protective about their employees. They don't want to send them out. So military psychology would probably, a military psychologist would work in the defense. For instance, they may get patients or the soldiers, somebody who would have gone for a war, injured themselves, right? They are the people who have been living away from the families, may require some kind of support. So a military psychologist would help them there. And rehabilitation psychologist, already talked in context of the neuropsychologist, but a rehabilitation psychologist may work in a rehab center, maybe as a de-addiction therapy. It would help in the de-addiction process, or if they're working in a hospital setup, then they're trying that the quality of life of the patient is improving. So these are some areas in where, as a clinician, where you will have the patient population that you deal with. So this is dominantly about the clinical setup. I request Ashish sir to take over the non-clinical part, and then maybe we can further help with the other things in psychology.
Thank you, ma'am, for giving so much information about clinical aspects in clinical psychology. So, if you have any doubts regarding, or if you have any questions regarding the clinical one, I would request everyone to make a mental note of it or just write it somewhere. We will be addressing all the questions in the end altogether. All right. So what we have grouped as non-clinical aspects includes all professions where a psychologist might serve, including the academics and the research aspects. The first one such aspect is organizational behavior. Now, as a psychologist or with the qualification in psychology, and if you have specialized in OB or industrial psychology, you can advance for a career in the field of a human resource manager. You can advance as a organizational relations manager. You can also utilize, with the other expertise that you have, such as conduction of tests, selection, recruitment, planning, uh, designing the training period of the employees, and addressing other issues that might arise in any organization. Also, a clinical psychologist, or also a psychologist with a degree in organizational behavior, may play the role of a human resource manager as well at times. Another career aspect in psychology is psychometrics. Now, it is a very technical term. It involves all the calculations, standardization, and mathematical processes which are there in psychology for developing tests and tools. I'm sure that everyone must have, if anyone is from psychology background, you must have either used a questionnaire, either attempted a questionnaire, or of any sort. It might be a feedback form about a restaurant where you went for the weekend. So all these things, the designing of such tests and how the results of these tests are analyzed, all of these are a part of psychometrics only. Also including in these days, one thing that is very trending is the CUET exam, the Central Universities entrance test, or the combined UG entrance test. So what happens in this test? Psychometrics are applied. Questions are designed, their difficulty level is set. The results of the candidates of all these students who will sit in this exam, they will be converted into a percentile score, which is also a part of psychometrics only. Now, who deserves to be into a better college is totally derived from these tests. So it is necessary that these tests are good. They are developed in a appropriate manner and they test the intelligence of the students as well. Other aspects where psychometrics might play a role, a person who is good in psychometrics is development of tests, clinical tests as well. Even those who are in the field of clinical psychology, even the clinical psychologists, they need to administer certain tests to their patients or their clients. These tests, they are developed by the use of psychometrics only. So a clinical psychologist can also be a psychometrician, and also a psychometrician can serve in the field of clinical psychologist, but not as a clinical psychologist. As Saniya ma'am said, for those we have regulations mandated by the Rehabilitation and uh, Council of India, for which MPhil is the minimum degree. Apart from this, another profession which is very evident is teaching. Now, after after you have completed your studies and higher studies in psychology, you can be a teacher. You can be a teacher in the school level, you can be a teacher at the university level or the college level as well. But for this, you need to have some additional qualifications. For example, for teaching in a school, you might require to have a B.Ed, Bachelor's in Education, and you need to qualify the CTET examination, the Central Teacher Eligibility Test. Similarly, if you want to teach in the university or the college level, you need to clear your national eligibility test for assistant professors. So this is also one very common profession, and teaching, it is not just in the settings of the school. In the school, there are also various levels of teaching. It can be at the primary level teaching, it can be at the higher secondary level teaching, or it can be the higher level teaching up to 10th and onwards, which are the postgraduate teachers as well. Apart from this, in teaching, there might be a requirement of special educators or special teachers as well. Now, these special teachers might have a qualification in clinical psychology as well, which might improve their areas they can serve. And they might not even have that. They can be special educators with, as Saniya ma'am said, with bachelor's in education and bachelor's in special education. So those qualifications, depending on the requirement of the job, needs to be completed, and a career can be pursued in this field as well. One more field which is quite sought after in psychology and in schools and universities are counselors. School counselors and university counselors, they basically serve to counsel the students regarding their academic growth, regarding the fields, those things they should choose, and wherein they can make a career. A school counselor also has the responsibility to address the issues faced by the students in the school. These issues, if they hamper in the learning of the student at any level, it can be an issue at home, it can be an issue with the peers, or it can be any other issue in the school. Anything that interferes with the education of the student is a responsibility of the school counselor. Now, the school counselor might also take the help of the parents and the other structure of the school, other hierarchies of the school. For this, some additional qualifications are required. For example, you do your bachelor's, and after that you do your diploma in counseling and educational counseling, like that. Or if you can do your master's with guidance and counseling as an optional subject, that also suffices for the same. Another career aspect which can be pursued after psychology is educational guidance. Now, before I start with educational guidance, I would simply like to differentiate between counseling and guidance. So counseling is basically when a student comes to ask for something. Something has happened and something is interfering with the education. Guidance is preventive, more on the preventive side. Counseling is what is done to improve something. Something has happened. Supposedly, one student's score is falling very low. So now the counselor will step in to rectify it, to improve it. Guidance is more preventive in nature. It predicts that this might happen and this has to be prevented. So educational guidance, particularly in educational guidance, is in this, the educational guide, he plays the role of guiding the students in an appropriate educational direction. What fields should they choose and what field would be more suitable according to their personality and their interest as well. So these they also use some certain tests, IQ tests and other tests, so which they might use as the basis for predicting or guiding in that direction. Another field is educational psychology. Now, the difference between educational psychology and teaching is just the deliverance of the subject and teaching the students. In educational psychology, how the teaching should be carried out, how what all what do we say tools can be used, what new methods can be derived to make education more effective. These things are addressed. In educational psychology, we must have heard about the Bloom's taxonomy. If we have any teacher in this meeting, they must know about the Bloom's taxonomy. So all these concepts, how to make education more effective, are a part of the educational psychologist. They fall into the job profile of an educational psychologist. How teaching should be done, how can it be made more effective, the introduction of more technology, and how to use more and more technology to make education more effective. Apart from this, one more field is sports psychology. In sports psychology, the psychologist plays the role of multiple roles. Even he might play the role of the teacher as well. He might also imply psychometrics. He might use the concepts from guidance and counseling as well. Apart from this, the major thing that is addressed is social psychology as well. How to perform under pressure, how to deal with social loafing, how to deal with how to increase social facilitation, how to make a team perform better under circumstances, certain circumstances such as pressure. What makes the any player feel under pressure, and to understand that, and after that has been understood, to improve the outcome of that player. So sports psychologists, they are very eagerly recruited into universities at the teaching level. We have the Motilal Nehru National Sports School at Rai Sonipat. There's a National Sports University as well. Leading universities also offer sports psychology as a elective or as a specialization in their masters or bachelors as well. And teachers can also, these sports psychologists may also go into teaching in these universities and institutes as an academic sports psychologist. And one more important aspect is in to pursue a career in psychology is research. Now, research is very actively practiced. It is, in higher education, the main aim of every person who who intends to pursue higher degree, they intend to do it in research only. So we will be talking very extensively on this topic about research. Before that, I would like to conclude that these are some of the 8 fields uh, which can be pursued apart from clinical psychology. To pursue research in India, we'll be talking only about the Indian context. I would name some premier institutes which offer research as either as a project or either as a degree, academic degree. So major premier research institutes in psychology of India are the NIMHANS, the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, which is located in Bangalore. Then the second institute, NIMHANS and PGI Chandigarh, both are institutes of national importance, and PGI Chandigarh comes in psychology, the psychiatry department comes second. So the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, Medical Education and Research, which is located in Sector 15, Chandigarh, is also a premier research institute. Apart from that, we have the Central Institute of Psychiatry in Ranchi, which is also a premier institute. This institute also offers both NIMHANS and CIP Ranchi. They offer both MPhil in clinical psychology as well. So clinical psychologists can also target these, and they have funded educational programs. Students who study in all these institutes get funding to study. And NIMHANS and CIP also offer a PhD or a research degree in psychology and clinical psychology as well. So after CIP, we also have the Defense Institute of Psychological Research, which the job roles that are played in Defense Research and Development Organization are recruitment of soldiers and officers, their training, and the policy making and everything regarding their recruitment. So how to deal with the manpower, the people uh, who govern the most powerful machines. Okay. So that is the role of the Defense Institute of Psychological Research. Also, the selection part. Someone has known about it, the process of the Services Selection Board. Before they recruit anyone into the military, they go through extensive psychological testing that includes of psychological tests, interviews, and group testing. All these are a part of psychology only. We also have the Indian Institute of Science, which offers a research degree in neuroscience. They don't offer a degree in psychology, but neuroscience, and which is also a allied subject of psychology. All the students who have masters in psychology are eligible for all these institutions that have been listed here. After that, we have all the IITs in India. Some IITs are also offering master's degree in cognitive sciences, such as the IIT Delhi. And there's also IIT Gandhinagar also offers a master's degree in cognitive sciences. Apart from that, they also offer PhD degrees in psychology. They have a Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, under which most IITs have a Department of Psychology. We also have some central universities such as the Jamia Millia Islamia, which has an extensive psychology department, and other central universities such as the Delhi University and all the central universities of India. All these universities have the best research opportunities for psychology students. So how to get into research, I would also talk about the role of fellowship in pursuing a research degree, because fellowship is a very important aspect. Fellowship means some monetary stipend that is given to the student while they are pursuing their degree. The importance of stipend is that when a student studies, they don't have to bother about the funding. They don't have to ask bother about their salary or job or other things. It gives them financial stability and also the psychological stability to pursue their education further. So there are multiple fellowships which can be availed, and most of them include an entrance exam in which you can sit and clear. So one fellowship is the UGC NET JRF. The basic qualifications for all these fellowships, before I begin naming them, is you must have a master's in psychology. In case you are pursuing your master's, you are still eligible, but you have to, if you clear this exam, you have to complete your master's within 2 years after that. All right. So first one is the UGC NET JRF. You can sit into this exam as even as a student of the masters in psychology, and or even if you have completed the masters. The age limit is 32. You can clear this exam and then you get a fellowship of around 37,000 rupees per month, for which you can utilize for studying further. Second one is the ICMR JRF for social sciences only. You can all the students of psychology can sit for this exam as well. Then we have the Prime Minister's Research Fellowship, which gives a fellowship of rupees 70,000 rupees per month to all the students. The PMRF has been is given in the most institutes, such as the Indian Institute of Science, most of the IITs, and some of the central universities as well, such as the Jamia Millia Islamia and the Delhi University. So in comparison to the UGC NET JRF and the ICMR JRF, the Prime Minister Fellowship is more attractive as it gives a higher amount of stipend. Then we have the PGIMR MER Fellowship. This exam is conducted by the Postgraduate Institute of Medical Education and Research, Chandigarh. Some selective fellowships are given. There are 7 or 8 seats for fellowship, and any student who clears this exam gets a stipend of around 40,000 rupees per month till their PhD is complete. Some other fellowships are the institutional fellowships given by the IITs. The institutional fellowships given by the IITs, they are at par with the other fellowships. That means they give the equal amount of fellowship and the ICMR JRF. Some central universities also offer institutional fellowships, which are a bit lesser than these compared, but they still give a financial stability for the students to continue. The Central Institute of Psychiatry, Ranchi, gives a fellowship of rupees 20,000, 25,000 rupees per month for MPhil candidates. And for those who pursue a PhD in clinical psychology, they get a stipend of around 35,000 rupees per month. Apart from that, those students who have completed their Masters of Arts in Psychology, they can appear for the JRF exam of the Defense Institute of Psychological Research conducted by the DRDO. They regularly notify the advertisements for the requirement of the JRFs in their campus. Mostly you have to work on a research project, and if you intend, you can also opt for a PhD degree along with your project. Other institutes such as the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, the AIMS New Delhi, it also has a psychiatry department, and you can avail a fellowship from there as well. So I haven't mentioned it here, I just recall it. If you have to appear into a two-stage examination, there are no interviews. You can apply for the AIMS examination, and if you get selected, you get the same amount of fellowship, that is 37,000 rupees per month, until you complete your degree. So these are some fellowships which you can avail to pursue your, which is also can be treated as a career in psychology. If you complete your higher degrees from a reputed institute, you stand at a higher chance to get placed at a good organization. So with this, we conclude our webinar, our informations on this. How do we go back?
Right. There's something that I would want to emphasize before we open the platform for questions and discussions actually. So because we have students also, so it may be overwhelming for them to have so much of information. So that if first thing is if you want to pursue psychology or not. So to even pursue psychology, the first thing is, are you willing to work with people with or for well-being of the people? If that is the main thing that you want to do and you are enjoying the theories in psychology, you are interested in the subject, then you should definitely opt for for bachelor's in psychology. So most of the if that is the main thing that you want to do and you are enjoying the theories in psychology, you are interested in the subject, then you should definitely opt for for bachelor's in psychology. So most of the institutes, including NCU, it's recommended that it becomes a part of the education that you are required to explore the field. So bachelor's is the time when you can go for internships. For all your vacations that you get, you can always look for internships or maybe weekend internships. For example, if you want to work with children, if you want to work with adults, if you want to work in a setup where there are people with mental health concerns, with NGOs in the area of education. Imagine 3 years of bachelor's with summer vacations and winter vacations. So it means you get 6 times the opportunity. So basically, at least 6 places you can explore what you want to do in psychology. If you want to do a corporate thing, as in if you want to be in OB, if you want to be in clinical, if you want to be in education, you have so much of time to explore that. So don't ever waste your vacations in, obviously you want to take those breaks, you want to do that, but always try to get associated with places which will help you to decide if you want to work in a particular field or not. For example, to work in a clinical setup, there's a lot of mental and emotional strength that you would also need. So someone may not be comfortable in going to a psychiatric setup to be in patients who have that level of disorders, who may not have reality orientation. So bachelor's is the time where you can eliminate, ये मुझे करना है, ये मुझे नहीं करना. I like to talk about brain. I like to explore different brain areas and functions. So I may want to work in neuropsychology. So It's not that you have to work with the patients only. आप अपना independent काम भी कर सकते हो, but bachelor's is the opportunity to explore what you want to do, because now institutes that are offering you masters, they expect that you have some clarity. And where will that clarity come from? It will come only from the internships and the observations. So, if you have also watched TV shows, a lot of therapeutic concepts are introduced there. A lot of how clinical psychologists are working in the forensic setup. If you watched The Mentalist, so he works as a forensic psychologist by observing the crime scenes and how, how a criminal would have thought and behaved. So that's how the psychologists are working there. So psychology as a field, bachelors would introduce you to various theories. If you engross yourself in that, you'll be able to actually associate it to the real life functioning. And probably that will help you to improve your relationships also and your functioning as well. So this is one emphasis that I would say, that before pursuing the field, you will be bombarded with a lot of theories at the bachelor's level, but if you are implying that, taking that in the real life situation, it will definitely help you to love this subject. So we are opening. You want to add something, sir?
Yep, I would totally concur with Sanya ma'am. So before you begin, not just in the field of psychology, before you make any decision, you need to explore at least. You need to test whether you are made for it or not. And internships definitely offer you that platform to, test something and analyze whether you are made for it or simply whether you are interested or not. It is a very healthy thing to say, I don't like this field. I'm not interested. I don't think I can spend my 40 years of life into this profession. It is very, I think it is very healthy to explore professions before you make a commitment of a very long term. Because I think this is the longest commitment of relationship you make in your life, right? So if you start working even at the age of 25 or 30, you have to spend 40, 50 years in the profession. So I think you should explore your interest and your compatibility into that field. So, and whether you are willing to take it up further or not. So we open the platform for any queries, any questions that you might want to ask. Like for example, you might ask about what are the qualifications to become this, what exams need to be cleared for this, or any other simple query related to psychology.
So, sir, my name is Radhika, and my question. Let me first give my introduction. I have been working as a career counselor, and I've worked with a lot of school students also. Most of the time, students come up with this question that ma'am, we don't want to study maths. So, what I wanted to understand is, maths is a major requirement if you want to get into any kind of career in psychology till 12th. Is it necessary? And what are the streams apart from humanities and arts? Like there are sciences, there's commerce. Is this necessary that they should be coming from a particular stream, or they can choose any stream?
So I think that is a very common thing that most teachers face when teaching maths. So students are particularly not interested because of first of all, the concept of, perception about maths is made in such a way because math is a tough subject or something. So the part lies on both sides, either both on this part of the student as well and on the part of the teacher as well. You need to simplify the subject as it is. The more simple you keep the subject, the more interested will the students be. If you are teaching stats or mathematics with formulas, students might remember it for the exams, but they will always forget it, and they will always hold on to that perception that maths is boring. Once they understand, the concept, and once I would just simply say in one statement, once a student learns to solve maths without any memorization of formulas, they would be more interested. They would never complain about mathematics, and particularly
So,
statistics.
sorry to interrupt. My question was actually, maths is a necessary subject, or one can pursue career in psychology without maths?
You don't need maths as a necessary subject, but you will be studying the elementary mathematics for statistics, which is very interesting. Won't be boring. There won't be any
Okay.
trigonometry. basic the level of mathematics that is required to pursue even the highest studies in psychology, it's up to the 10th level, mean, median, mode, and those basic standard deviations. That is it. And rest, if higher calculations are required, we use SPSS. You can just fill in the data, you just click, and it gets calculated in microseconds.
Psychology would involve numbers, but it does not involve the maths.
Particularly the trigonometry and the algebraic mathematics.
Yeah.
So without maths in 11th, 12th, they can pursue. Okay.
I am a person who left maths and pursued psychology and happened to be in the field for so long. My escape from maths was psychology, and I've been in the field. So psychology does not require maths.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Someone else also raised their hand.
I think Vanshika had.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. My name is Vanshika. I have just passed my 12th this year and I have taken admission in NCU. And I wanted to ask you that are there any specific areas within psychology that are expected to see significant growth in the future?
Well, some aspects research will continue to grow always, and also some fields which I feel that will be growing are military psychology, the recruitment of scientists in military, because it has been constructed over the last 70 years. There has been no active recruitment of clinical psychologists in the military, and they need it desperately.
Yes.
So if reforms are done, if they are open to modification, if they are open to for the betterment of their employees, they have to open it in the coming near future. Second, teaching and research, that is continuously growing. As you yourselves are a student, you are enrolling. As the population is growing, the more students are getting, as the literacy rate is increasing, more people are getting enrolled into schools. So that is also a growing career option in psychology and in the clinical field as well. I would simply say academics and clinical psychologists are also there. So academic is one general, I would say, profession that will continue to grow. Even the clinical psychologists, there is active recruitment. Now there is a rising consciousness in people about mental health. So recently we have seen the openings for clinical psychologists and the aims in the Haryana government as well. And that is, earlier it was very, lagging behind. It was, they were very, we could see a very laziness into the recruitments, but now it is growing and it is expected to grow even more in the coming future.
Correct. I would also want to add on that every subject, because psychology in itself is a growing field, as a broad field, whatever you pursue on the basis of your interest, believe me, at least in next 10 years, there'll be something that you'll be doing well in. Except that you have to be dedicated with the subject. आपको कुछ ना कुछ अच्छा आपके इंटरेस्ट का you'll definitely get. Because clinical schools, everywhere the psychologists are in demand. Literally every second day we are getting a demand that we need a psychologist in a school, we need a special educator in the school, and everybody is looking at it because even the diagnostic levels are improving, and obviously we need people for improving and rehabilitating the people also.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So I would also add for all the candidates here, whatever you pursue, and particularly when you are choosing psychology, one thing I would very cautiously tell you that the career growth is there. You will definitely be in the best of the career, but you require to have a command and interest in the subject. Because as of now, fields are limited. As of now, and they are expected to grow, and they will grow only for those people who have a very good command and with interest. And I think this thing applies to all streams of education. So field of education, any field, just because you this is for all students, that never choose for what growth will be there. If you have a good command on the subject, even if there is no growth, even if there is no recruitment of psychologists, if you are good at your subject, you will find your place. You will make your place even if you don't find one. All right. So one thing before your command or your marks in one subject, one thing that matters is your interest. If you're interested to do something, then only you will be able to perform the best. Even if the situations are against you, you will be able to perform in the academics or in any field only and only if you are interested. because after some time you get exhausted, and the only thing that makes you go through even through the exhaustion phase is your interest. How willing are you to do something? That is the only thing that matters. Very good question, Vanshika. Any more questions? Anyone else?
We had a class who had joined us. So in case any of the students in the class they want to ask.
Is there any student who is studying in the university in masters, at the master's level?
Or have completed bachelor's?
And how many students we have from the school level?
Probably we are not getting that response anyhow. So we would just want to add on here that as a field of psychology, our parents, our people outside there, uh, you know, you are expected to be, there are certain qualities that as a psychologist you should have. It's not that these qualities are always inborn. If we are making some conscious effort, we can definitely get it in us. For example, being sensitive, uh, because any person, psychology does involve working. Being sensitive is extremely important. Um, Ankita
Ankita,
ma'am, are you willing? Is there something you want to ask, or is it a response to one of the questions?
you can simply unmute yourselves without raising
Okay.
hands.
I think some network problem. No. So I would like to continue with what I was saying, that there's certain skills that you, and as a human also, that will help you. So maybe being sensitive, ability to just help others, giving them an ear. We all as humans, we don't have the quality these days to listen. अगर हमारे पास कोई भी कुछ प्रॉब्लम लेके आ रहा है या डिस्कस ही कर रहा है, हम हमेशा उनको सोल्यूशन देना चाहते हैं. So I guess we need to detach ourselves from that behavior at times. I think there are a lot of people who just want to be heard.
Ankit,
Good morning, ma'am. Yeah, good morning. Good morning, ma'am. This is Yashika. How to pass summary because after 12 in proper steps. Can you repeat? There's a lot of disturbance from the back. Yeah. Can you suggest some intern opportunity? Can, will it be possible proper study?
Complete procedure, and as I am also not a student of mathematics, but I want to go in psychomatic.
Uh, I'm so
to
sorry.
be a student, I think I got it.
Okay.
To be a psychometrician, you don't need a degree in mathematics. You'll be studying the necessary math that is required as a part of your course in psychometrics. Supposedly you choose psychometrics as a specialization in your master's, or you do a course in psychometrics that intends to cover all the basic concepts that are required to become a psychometrist. So even I didn't had a very good command over mathematics, or even when I had maths in 11th or 12th, it didn't even matter. So when we studied psychometrics, when we studied psychological testing, when we understood it, so it was in the course itself. We didn't require mathematics to be a part of continuous as a subject that has to be continuously studied. Okay. Mathematics is a bit different from statistics. Most things, the major part that we use in psychometrics is statistics. That is not mathematics. That's a major part. And statistics, I think everyone has studied till 10th class of mathematics. No level of mathematics would be used beyond the class 10th level in psychology.
So, ma'am, I would like to ask another question. I have always been curious and confused about this thing that we use the broad term therapist to use for a clinical psychologist, a child psychologist. So, what does a therapist actually mean? Like, are there in it's a broad term or are there for any specific field?
A therapist is someone who's working with the client and is using a particular approach. For example, there's something known as cognitive behavior therapy. So, someone who's following that model is a CBT therapist, right? So, a therapist is not doing any assessments. They may do an individual assessment or, for tracking the change, but the main purpose is to give you those skills and techniques in accordance to your willingness to be a part of it, obviously, so that you are able to improve the life. For example, personality issues, they need, so there's something known as the emotion regulation concepts. So the patient or the client who's coming, we would try that the person is able to learn that. So जो basically हम एक school पकड़ लेते हैं कि हम इस तरीके से patient से deal करेंगे, and we specialize in that, I would say that person is a therapist. Even the counseling people, they do call themselves therapist, but there is a line between a therapist and a counselor. A counselor may eventually give you some suggestions and advice also, but the therapist aims that you're developing that as an insight and as an experiential thing. So, plus it involves certain certifications and specialization. It's not a lengthy specialization like a full 2 years, 3 years course, but yes, it weeks or 3 days training to. So as वो आपकी education होगी and then you go and apply. So that happens in the field of education. आप चाहे BCom करो, BBA करो, CA बनो, जो आप अपनी किताब में सीख रहे हो, you are applying it in the life functioning also. So that's again in psychology, whatever you're learning, whatever you're training, you're applying with the clients. And something that I would want to emphasize is that whatever you are preaching to others, as a friend, as a human, as a counselor, as a therapist, try to first, follow it yourself. As basic as telling someone ki meditation kar lo, yoga kar lo, exercise kar lo. Are you doing that? Because if your mental health is not okay, you will not be able to help the other person. So जैसे फ्लाइट में भी कहते हैं कि पहले अपना मास्क लगाओ फिर बगल वाले का लगाओ. The same thing, as a clinician, as a psychologist, you have to maintain your mental health also. For that as well, we have supervisors now. There are some institutes that recommend that as a psychology student, especially at master's level, you should undergo your training as a client and then move to a therapist.
We have one more question in the chat box. So,
can you suggest some internship opportunities coming up? Internships, are you looking forward for clinical, non-clinical? What kind of internships? Because बहुत सारी हैं.
Plus for all the internships also, your level of qualification also matters. If you are a college student, then you can, it depends on the firm which is offering the internship. So our students who are in the second year of bachelor's, they have gone for internships in AIMS at the Delhi prison centers. One student has also gone to the Volkswagen in Pune. So it depends in which field you are. You can have an internship in clinical psychology from AIMS or the civil hospital in Gurgaon. So it depends in which field do you want to offer, want to pursue your internship.
Clinical psychology internships. So you can approach the hospitals and special ed setups. Special ed setups if you want to work with the children. And so most of the places, they do offer internships. Area wise, you'll have to look like but there are multiple special schools which are offering. And in hospitals also, if you approach their HRs, they have a pre-planned what do you say, the internship training programs. Good morning, Yashika this side. Please tell me the complete procedure to opt a career in psychology after 12th. If the student is from commerce stream. So right now, in commerce, after commerce, psychology does not have a rigid criteria to enroll in bachelor's. So you can have commerce, you can have science. As of now, we are still open. There's no rigidity till now. A couple of years down the line, we are not sure how it goes. But right now, anyone who's willing to pursue psychology have got certain percentage of marks, varies from university to university. Like here at NCU, our criteria is 80%, sorry, 75%,
75.
5% in 12th. So whichsoever background you come from, if you have psychology in 11th or 12th, it's a bonus for you. If it's not a problem at all, because you will be introduced to similar things in your bachelor's. So choose the university, see if you're fitting in there, and you can opt for the subject. And based on your involvement in the subject, the exposure that you can take a final call how to go further, in which field to pursue in masters. There are a lot of people who get into practice after bachelor's, but as a but they have to undergo trainings. But most of the people that I have known, they've gone for special ed where they're working with children. I hope I was able to answer that, Yashika.
So it is not necessary that you need to have psychology from the beginning also. If I tell my own example, I didn't have psychology even in my graduation. I opted for psychology in my master's only, and I was so interested in the subject that within the before the end of the first year itself in masters, I cleared all my entrance exams and fellowships and other these examinations. Some of them which I talked about in the PPTs as well. So it depends on your interest. But yes, one thing I would suggest is that you streamline your career in from graduation onwards only. At least choose psychology as an optional subject, even if you are pursuing a degree in arts. Okay, I would simply suggest one thing.
So whenever you enroll for honors program, चाहे वो psychology हो, economics हो, कोई भी हो, it means you will only focus on that. But if you feel you still want to make a choice, if it's psychology or any other social sciences, then you can opt for BA program, which gives you the option of choosing. Maybe you can do a combination of psychology, sociology, economics, or psychology, sociology, English. But there are various other options as well. And then in masters you can pursue if you
in most colleges where a general BA is offered, you can choose multiple subjects as well, such as ma'am said, sociology, psychology, and other things. So any other queries?
And considering our time is also
What is applied psychology?
Applied psychology is the field of psychology which basically deals with all the theories and something that we have discussed in psychology, but just in the applied concept, right? So okay. Career concepts which we discussed, they are a part of applied psychology only. Supposedly simple psychology, supposedly if we are studying systems and theories in psychology, right? We are understanding the theories, the psychoanalytical theories. Now, when we study clinical psychology, it is borrowing the therapy part from the systems and theories only, but it is talking about it in the applied concept. Where is it to be applied? Where all whatever we have studied or whatever theories have been formulated in psychology, where have to be applied? Where they have to be applied? We study statistics, we remember the formulas, we remember the processes, we do certain significance tests and do the testing procedure. But where do we apply it? We apply it in the formation of new tests, assessment of scores, etc. So applied psychology basically deals with the application of the theories and concepts that we have studied in psychology.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so we have come to our closing time as well. Is there something else that anybody wants to ask?
Before we conclude, we would
Yeah.
like to, we don't want any query to be, unanswered.
Yeah.
So I think that would be all.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful session interacting with most of you, and it was, I think these things will help you in the future as well. As we saw, there were some school students as well. So you can assess use this information. You can also Google. You have internet these days. Everyone has access to internet. You can just Google about these things, the terms we talked about these, and you might also go through the qualification processes, how to pursue it.
And you can mail us also. Our contacts are there in the NCU website. So you can definitely connect us through there also.
Feel free to drop a mail to me or Saniya ma'am,
Yeah.
right, with your queries.
Or anybody in the institute. Everybody is
Anyone.
responsive. Yeah. So thank you so much everyone for being here, and we shall conclude now.
So thank you everyone.